Hi everybody, welcome back to my studio. Now, as you know, I am in the process of redoing my bodice blueprint using the dress kit from the Surefit Designs pattern fitting system. Now, in my previous video, I actually did a comparison where we compared our commercial patterns to the Surefit Designs pattern fitting system to show you how easy your sewing life can be if you're actually working with your own personal body measurements. Now, in today's video, I actually just wanted to take a step back as well and just pinpoint some mistakes that I'm finding my customers are making when they are drawing up their patterns. Now, these mistakes actually then, if you don't pick it up and you go and sew your sloper, it comes through as a fitting issue, and it is not a fitting issue. It was actually a mistake with my pattern. So I'm going to show you those little mistakes, and I want you to get into the habit of actually looking at those certain points to make sure that you are correct when you are working with the pattern. Now, this is by all means not perfecting the pattern. We do have a full video that Glenda does on the Surefit Designs YouTube channel showing you how to perfect your pattern. These are really just little mistakes that I am highlighting that you might not pick up, and this is what I want you to go double check before you cut out your sloper now. I've drawn up my pattern now using my personal body measurements. As I mentioned, I'm not taking you through the steps of drawing up the pattern. I'm also not taking you through the steps of perfecting your pattern, meaning making sure that the shoulder length is correct, that I've got my 90-degree angles on certain areas. These are actually little mistakes that I want to highlight, showing you where you can go wrong when you are drawing the pattern. And those little mistakes then come through as a fitting issue. And in the meantime, it's really not a fitting issue. It is us that's actually drawn that neck curve or any of the lines incorrectly. So the first area I want us to have a look at is on our neck curve. Now here I do get a lot of ladies sending me photos and they can't even pin close in the center front because it is pulling so tight on their neck area. Now, what can go wrong there? Let's have a look. First off, I just wanted to show you the designing stylus. When we are looking at the stylus, this is our armhole curve. If I just flip it over, we've got our front neck curve over there. And that is the curve that we're going to use now to draw our pattern or that neck curve. Now, I'm working on a 38 dot, which is a 96.5 centimeters. And I actually also just want to mention this, that if I am working on my personal patterns, I like to put down what the dots are that I am using, that sizing dots. If I go back to my pattern then to correct, I know exactly where these points must line up. So with me working with the 38 dot, I will always then go and just make a note, and it's in pencil, but I'm going to write it now here. I will just say that my bust measurement that I'm using is a 38. If I'm using a measurement that's in between two sizes, then I will always also go and just note it, and then what I will do, I will say, let's say I'm working between 38 and 39, I will do 38/39. So I know that I have actually worked in between. I can even make a little dot there so that I know. So for me, this is just something that I always do with my patterns. It helps me when I do go back so that I can see, did I use the right sizing dots? Sometimes we don't pick up that we've actually done the wrong dot, and again, we can have too little circumference or too much circumference on a pattern. So let's have a look at the neckline now. When we are drawing our neckline, from the center front, we always want a 90-degree angle. So I go with my curved T-square, and I already went and I drew a 90-degree line. I do it for about 1 centimeter or your 3/8 of an inch. Then I go back with my designing stylus and I pick up the curve of the master pattern. Remember, all the lines on the master pattern is there to guide us so that we're getting the correct curve. If I don't go and first see what curve is on the master pattern and then apply it to my pattern sizing, I am going to also pick up little mistakes. So as you can see, I've picked up that curve of the master pattern. You can see it in the black, and I will be doing the changes in, I think let's do the changes in red so that it stands out. Now I'm picking it up there. I'm going up to my 38 dot. Can you see I'm on the 38? And I'm just moving it across. As that ruler is, I am not swiveling the ruler whatsoever. So let's go see again. So I'm picking it up. There's my curve. going up to my size 38, and I'm going across, and I've already done a bit of a 90-degree line over there, so all I have to do really is just go draw that curve. Now I find with my ladies, especially when they are a bigger size, what happens is they don't go draw in the 90-degree curve first, so now they're trying to use their designing stylus to actually get a bit of a straight line, and they can see there's a little bit of a flat section there. So what they do, they just go to that dot, they see, okay, there it looks almost as if it's going to work, and when they're there and they then swivel out to the point in that neck area, what's happening now is they are getting this curve. Now look at the difference between this curve and that one. There I've got the correct shape to go around my neck. Can you see this is a flatter line? So obviously it is actually going to pull tight around my neck. So please double check your neck curves before you actually cut out the fabric. Now the next point that I want to also highlight is your sizing dots at the underarm point. There we sometimes find that it's feeling really tight at the underarm, or they can't get the sleeve sewn in properly, and that is because we have two lines of dots over here. We've got for sleeveless garments, which is the higher dot, and then we have our dot there for our sleeves. So you've got to use the point number 2, because when you're going to be fitting your pattern, you have to put a sleeve in as well. So please make sure, if you go back, that you've used the lower bottom or the bottom row of sizing dots over there. The next mistake that I do pick up is in the bust dart area. Now we are already working with the correct volume for our cup size. We are using the Adjust a Bust template to go and make sure that if we are a C cup size, we are using that C cup dart, or even our size D. We can extend it as well. We have videos on the Sure Fit Designs YouTube channel that will give you more information on working with your Adjust a Bust template. But we are now looking at what can go wrong when we were drawing our pattern pieces. The first thing that I do find is that some people are drawing the dart point too close to their bust point. Now we want to be about 2.5 centimeters to about 3.8 centimeters away from that bust point. So that's giving us about 1 inch, and I think to about 1.5 inches that we are going to be pulling back. So we can go and use, and I'm just putting it here so you can see we do have those little dots that has been punched out. So I can use those ones as well, which will guide me. So I will go maybe 2 or 3 of those dots back from the bust point. I do still go and measure as well to make sure that it is the correct distance. So what I do, and I'm just going to place my dot so it's going through there, I've actually gone back 1, 2 dots, and I can even go 3 dots if I want to. Remember, I'm working anything between 2.5 centimeters to 3.8 centimeters away from my bust point. If I go and measure now from that point, I'm exactly 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch away from there. I will decide on my body that I maybe want to pull back just that little bit more. We don't want to be any closer, because then that dart point is actually curving around your bust, and that is not a good look when we are going to be sewing our clothing. So that is the first thing that I want you to check. Go measure from bust point to your dart point. The next thing that I want you to have a look at, can you see my red line that I've drawn over there? I'm talking about this already, but this was actually my last step when I finished drawing my pattern, and that is to perfect our bust dart. I'll put the link below for you to go and have a look at the video that Linda has done, where she shows you how to correct it. But in fact, what we are doing, we are folding out this dart, and then we are making sure that we have a straight line from underarm point to waist point. And if it's not straight, I will go and draw it then so that I've got the correct line for my side seam. So please go have a look at that video for me. I would say 90% of my customers that's got a bigger bust dart do need that change, and I must say also, none of them are actually doing this. So for me, this is one of the areas we are actually going to perfect before we go and cut out our pattern pieces. And then the other thing that we have to remember to do is then to also, once we've measured from the middle of the shoulder down to where my waist measurement was, we have to make sure we are moving our pattern up. And I'm just going to move this up now. Let me just get this loose. And we are still staying on our grain line, and I'm just going to my line where I was. Let's just tape that down. Next, you are going to double check your waist dart for me. Make sure that you've drawn that correct. Now, the point of my waist dart will always be lining up with my bust point. And I like to go from the bust point. I've got a faint pencil line running there, and it's running 90 degrees with this line that I have there. But I always do that guideline for myself so that I know when I am drawing this waist dart, it is lying correctly. It's not slightly angled. Now, when we are using our template for our waist darts, this one tells me it's for the bodice front dart, and it's also saying align arrow with apex position. Now, what I have to do is I am putting that arrow at that bust point, and if you look at that bottom section there where it's actually curved in a bit for me, I line that up with my faint pencil line that I've done, and I go and I draw the tip of my dart. And then if it needs to be moving up or down, I will move it up then. I just wanted to pull this back just to show you. Let's imagine my bust point is lower and I draw it there. Can you see that curve there? It is not lining up with my waist guidelines. If you've got a situation that's either below or above that waist guideline, you are now going to move it up so that your guideline is lining up with the pattern guideline. And again, because I do have a faint line that I've drawn there, I make sure again that line is still in the dot point, and it is also in that little bit of a curve that I have over there. And then I just draw the bottom part of my dart, I go and I connect it, and I do that. So what can go wrong with this waist dart now? Instead of lining up this arrow point to my bust point, I find that some of my ladies are actually moving this up and they are lining the tip of the dart with the bust point. And this happens quite a lot. So they will go and they actually go and do that. And again, all the red lines will be the incorrect ones. They go down to that area over there, and now they go and draw. Let's just draw this section. Now they go and draw the bottom section. Once that is now drawn, they go and connect. Let's see if I can connect from there to there. So our bust tip is being sewn right into our bust point, which is not the correct way. Remember, any dart that's connected or around my bust point must always be pulled back a little bit. So we are getting this dart, so that is a mistake. Look at all of this excess volume that I'm already removing, so I'm not getting the right curve over the bust. The second mistake that I do find as well, and that is again, let's say our bust point was lower and I actually did it, I'm just coming lower. I don't want to draw another bust point, but the pattern piece, this curve is below this guideline. So what I then find is when you are drawing your pattern, we are drawing it basically still from that point. They're not moving it up again. They want to draw the bust dart or the waist dart all in one. So now they go and draw this dart and they stop at this line. So now if I'm there and there, I'm going in, you can't really see it with this marker, but I am actually removing a little bit of the volume there, so I'm not getting the correct width for my waist dart. So that is another thing that I do find. I've even had someone with a very short waist and her dart ended up looking like this. And she only went to these lines. She didn't move it up again. So this is also a mistake that can happen, especially if you are new to working with Sherfa designs. So I want you to take your template. Please go back to your pattern. Go make sure that everything is done correctly. And then I also want you to remember that you are going to do the sideways T for me. when we are doing a bodice or a jacket, we actually align the skirt pattern with our bodice pattern by connecting the T's, and then also I make sure that the center line and my grain line will be running straight into the skirt section as well. Now what I've highlighted is really the most common mistakes that I'm finding when I'm helping my customers with their fitting. Now when I do fit my pattern as well on my body, I prefer to have the skirt section on already. I draw it to my low hip measurement and I make sure I line everything up and I actually tape it together. If you look at my photo there, you can see what my pattern looks like. The only other thing I think that I do want to mention is that if you are putting the skirt section on and if the waist dart is not lining up with the waist dart in our bodice section, you can go and just move that bottom waist dart a little bit. Please don't move the top waist dart because that is lining up with our bust point. You might just find that your tip might be correct if you draw the line all the way through, but it's just angled maybe a little bit so that it's not lining up on these sections. You'll also notice that I've mostly concentrated on the front pattern piece because that is where my mistakes happen. The only mistake I really pick up on the back pattern piece is that the side seams aren't correct. Again, there's a video explaining all of that to you in the YouTube channel, but I'm just going to show you how you can go and measure your side seam so that you know when you are drawing the back pattern, you are using the correct length for your side seam. So all I'm going to do, and I just want to bring that out longer. All I do is from underarm, and I'm just going to make a dot for my underarm. I go to where my dart is. Remember, we sew out the dart, so I bring that to the bottom dart leg, and I go to my waist, and I can make a line there. Now that is the length, and I'm just going to draw a line here. This is the length that I'm going to use when I am drawing my back pattern piece. I've got to make sure that I'm moving that pattern up or down so that this bottom line will be on the waist guideline again before I actually do my waist dart. I want you to get into the habit of double checking your pattern. It is so easy for a little mistake to slip in. I'm maybe just for a moment thinking of something else and I'm not using the correct size dot, or I didn't do the correct angle. So it's always best double check yourself before you cut out your fabric. That is going to save you maybe one sloper, because once you've done it and we pick up the mistake, you've got to go back, recut your fabric, sew it again. So rather spend that extra bit of, or that extra couple of minutes double checking all these points, and then you can go ahead and cut out your pattern. I hope that this information that I'm sharing with you will help you while you're in the process of actually drawing your own pattern. These are really just little mistakes that just slip through. It is not a big issue. It's something we correct on our pattern. So I don't want you to even feel stressed about it if you did make that mistake that I've just highlighted. It's just while we are actually drawing our patterns, it's so easy while we are focusing on one point to maybe just use an incorrect size dot, or maybe the wrong angle of a line, anything like that. You know what? It's all on paper. I'm always someone that says, you know what, just correct it, go erase that line. We're working on our pencil. It's not a train smash. So enjoy the process that you are busy with. Don't frustrate yourself. Don't get impatient with yourself. So I think that is my little bit of advice for today, because I do find that some of you out there are getting frustrated while you're in the process, and while when you are getting frustrated, again, little mistakes happen. So I will look forward to sharing my finished sloper with you. That is going to be our next video, where I'm just going to show you changes that I made on my pattern. I actually put my sloper on my body, and I show you my forward shoulder, how much I've got to move. So I'm just doing all those changes for myself, and I'll show you the pattern work that I do as well. And I'm hoping that's also going to encourage you to start designing with Surefit Designs. Some of you are buying the pattern system and you are just too scared to take that next step. So this is really what these videos are about, is just showing you that you can do it, helping you to avoid certain mistakes on your pattern, so that when we are starting with the fit, it's going to be so much easier. Now that is it for me. Let me carry on working on my bodice blueprint. You must have a lovely week, and I'll chat to you next time.